What happens when a man simply stops asking for permission? Not out of rage, not out of protest, but because something inside him says, I don't need your approval anymore. Not to speak, not to live, not to rest, and certainly not to matter. He's not quitting life, he's reclaiming it. And he's done asking broken systems to bless what he already knows is good. Most men don't realize how much of their life has been shaped by permission seeking. From childhood, we're taught to wait for the green light, raise your hand to speak, ask before doing, get the degree, earn the title, secure that promotion, marry the right woman. Stay in the system because only then will you be seen as a man who's worthy, a man who has done it right. But here's what no one tells you. The finish line, it just keeps moving. You think you've arrived only to be told, yup, you're not enough. Your masculinity is now toxic. Your confidence became intimidating. Your peace is privileged. Your silence, suspicious. So you keep applying for love, for approval, for recognition. But there comes a point in a man's life when he finally sees it for what it is. It's a rigged game. And then he walks away, not to collapse, but to build something that doesn't require external validation. The change doesn't happen all at once. There's no big speech, no public exit. It happens quietly. You stop explaining your choices to people who haven't earned access to your story. You stop apologizing for your strength, your solitude, your stillness. You stop justifying why you're not chasing the ladder, the label, the lifestyle. You start realizing, I don't owe this system anything. Not your time, not your spirit, not your obedience, and again, certainly not your suffering. Here's what men often stop doing when they reach this threshold. They stop defending their peace. If it costs you your peace, it's too expensive, full stop. They stop debating with people who need them to lose. You don't explain your life to anyone hoping to feel superior when you do. They stop performing respectability. You don't have to contort yourself to be palatable to people who've never respected men like you. They stop waiting for recognition. You no longer need a certificate to prove your wisdom. You live it. This isn't quitting. This is exiting a hostile situation. So let's name it clearly. The systems and people that demand permission from men, well, they do not love men. They use them, they shame them, and they extract from them. And then they discard them when they're no longer useful. To them, men are disposable. No emotion, just a fact. And here are just a few of those systems. Academia, which tells you your lived wisdom means nothing unless it's footnoted and credentialed. Corporate culture, which rewards burnout and calls it ambition, then replaces you the minute you slow down. Family courts, which see you as functionally just a wallet with a pulse. Media narratives, which frame your masculinity as toxic, dangerous, or laughable. My goodness. Modern relationships, where many men feel like they're on probation, always being evaluated, never fully trusted. You're not imagining it. These systems don't ask you to grow, they ask you to kneel. And When you finally stop asking for their blessing, well, you stop being a tool and start being a man. Now, freedom isn't loud. It's not angry. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to fight every battle. Real freedom is quiet because it no longer depends on external permission. You wake up in the morning and own your own day. Not because someone said you could, but because it's your day. You speak the truth you know, not to impress or to provoke, but because silence no longer serves you. You build the life that fits, not to prove you're good, but because you already are. You begin to notice something. You're less reactive. You're less tired. You're less angry. Because the battle you were fighting was never about other people. It was about needing their permission to be free. And now, you're not waiting anymore. There's a myth that when men stop asking the system for permission, they're collapsing into apathy. That's false. In truth, they're rerouting, as in putting down roots, into agency. Here's what that often looks like. You stop chasing status and start investing in stability. You stop pursuing legacy and start pursuing peace. You stop pursuing identity through approval and start building it through integrity. You become more reliable, more grounded, more internally honest because you're no longer being tugged in 100 directions by institutions that don't care if you completely shatter. You become a man who leads quietly, lives honestly, and asks no one to co-sign his life. That is not collapse. That is sovereignty, personal sovereignty. If you've reached that point where you're no longer asking, not your family, not your boss, not your ex, not your community, and certainly not the modern culture. If you're no longer asking the system for permission to be whole, to be at peace, to be yourself, then welcome. You've crossed the invisible threshold where a man is no longer defined by what he obeys or what he owns, but by how deeply he trusts his own voice, his own heart. You don't owe them proof. You don't owe them polish. You don't owe them pain. You're free because you stopped asking. You are still standing and you are living free.